Carl Gustav Jung, a pivotal figure in the nascent field of analytical psychology, was born in Keswil, Switzerland in 1875, a time of burgeoning scientific inquiry and deep-seated spiritual tradition. His father was a pastor, and this early immersion in religious history and thought profoundly shaped his later explorations of the human psyche. Young Jung was a solitary and introspective child, often preoccupied with dreams, visions, and the inner world of his own mind. This personal inclination towards the unseen realms of experience laid the foundational stones for his life's work. He pursued medicine at the University of Basel, driven by a desire to reconcile the worlds of spirit and science. It was during his medical studies that he discovered psychiatry, a field that offered a potential bridge between the empirical and the ethereal. After graduating, he began his career at the Burghölzli Psychiatric Hospital in Zurich, under the tutelage of Eugen Bleuler, a pioneer in the study of schizophrenia. Jung's early work was marked by meticulous clinical observation and the development of the word association test, a tool designed to uncover the emotionally charged complexes within the psyche. This research brought him to the attention of Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, initiating a period of intense collaboration and intellectual exchange. For several years, Freud saw Jung as his heir apparent, the crown prince destined to carry the torch of psychoanalysis into the future. Their correspondence reveals a deep, albeit complex, professional and personal relationship. However, fundamental theoretical disagreements began to emerge, creating an irreparable rift between the two intellectual giants. The primary point of contention was the nature of the libido. Freud defined it as purely sexual energy, whereas Jung conceived of it as a more generalized psychic or life force. Furthermore, Jung could not accept Freud's insistence on the Oedipus complex as the central neurosis of childhood. He believed the human psyche was motivated by more than just repressed infantile desires. This divergence led to a painful and final break in 1913, a turning point that plunged Jung into a period of profound personal crisis and creative illness. He described this tumultuous time as a confrontation with the unconscious, a voluntary descent into the depths of his own soul. It was from this harrowing journey into his inner world that his most original and influential concepts would be born. The central pillar of Jung's post-Freudian thought is the concept of the collective unconscious. He proposed that beyond the personal unconscious, which contains an individual's own repressed memories and experiences, there exists a deeper, universal layer shared by all of humanity. This collective unconscious is a reservoir of latent memories and archetypes inherited from our ancestral past. It is the psychic residue of countless generations of human experience, a common heritage connecting every individual to the whole of history. Archetypes are the primordial images and patterns of behavior that reside within this collective realm. They are not memories in the conventional sense, but rather innate predispositions to experience and perceive the world in specific ways. Jung identified numerous archetypes, but several stand out as fundamental to the structure of the psyche. The persona, derived from the Latin word for an actor's mask, is the face we present to the world. It is the compromise between our true individual nature and the expectations of society. While a necessary tool for social interaction, an over-identification with the persona can lead to a sense of alienation from one's true self. Deeper within lies the shadow, one of Jung's most crucial and challenging concepts. The shadow represents the dark side of our personality, the repository of all that we repress and reject in ourselves. It contains our primitive instincts, our socially unacceptable impulses, and our undeveloped potentials. Confronting the shadow is a difficult but essential moral task, for it is the first step towards self-knowledge and wholeness. To deny the shadow is to project it onto others, leading to prejudice, conflict, and a fractured sense of self. Integration of the shadow does not mean giving free rein to darkness, but rather acknowledging it, understanding its origins, and harnessing its energy for creative and constructive purposes. Then there are the archetypes of the anima and animus, representing the contrasexual aspects of the psyche. The anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man, while the animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. These archetypes are shaped by personal experiences with the opposite sex, primarily parents, but also by the collective, historical experience of men and women interacting. The anima and animus act as mediators between the conscious ego and the inner world, influencing our relationships and our creative lives. A man's relationship with his anima affects his capacity for relatedness, his moods, and his connection to the irrational. A woman's relationship with her animus shapes her ability to think logically, to be assertive, and to find meaning in her life. At the very center of the collective unconscious is the archetype of the self. The self represents the totality of the psyche, the union of conscious and unconscious, and the ultimate goal of psychological development. It is an archetype of wholeness, order, and integration, often symbolized by circular or squared images like the mandala. The process of moving towards this wholeness Jung termed individuation. Individuation is the lifelong journey of becoming the person one was always meant to be. A process of differentiating oneself from the collective while also being in conscious relationship with it. It is not about achieving a state of perfection, but about becoming more fully and authentically human. This journey involves a continuous dialogue between the ego, the center of consciousness, and the self, the center of the total psyche. Dreams play a vital role in this dialogue, acting as the primary channel through which the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind. For Jung, dreams were not merely wish fulfillments, as Freud had argued, but were natural, purposeful expressions of the psyche. They serve a compensatory function, bringing to light the aspects of ourselves that we have neglected or repressed in our waking lives. The symbolic language of dreams is the language of the archetypes. A dream about a wise old man, for instance, might represent the emergence of the wise old man archetype, offering guidance and insight from the depths of the collective unconscious. Similarly, encountering a terrifying monster in a dream could be a confrontation with one's own unacknowledged shadow. Jungian analysis, therefore, places great emphasis on dream interpretation, not through a rigid dictionary of symbols, but through a process of amplification. Amplification involves exploring the personal and collective associations of a dream image to uncover its unique meaning for the individual dreamer. This process connects the dream to myths, fairy tales, and religious symbolism, revealing its archetypal dimensions. Jung believed that the psyche has a natural tendency towards healing and wholeness, a transcendent function that works to resolve conflicts and unite opposites. This function is what drives the process of individuation forward. It is the creative impulse that generates new symbols and new attitudes, allowing the individual to move beyond a state of one-sidedness. The tension between opposing forces within the psyche, conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, good and evil, is the very source of psychic energy and growth. The goal is not to eliminate this tension, but to hold it, to create a synthesis that transcends the opposites. Jung's work extended far beyond the consulting room, as he saw the same archetypal patterns playing out on the world stage. He analyzed mythology, religion, alchemy, and art, saying them as vast repositories of human psychological experience. Alchemy, in particular, fascinated him. He viewed the alchemist's quest to turn lead into gold as a symbolic representation of the individuation process, the transformation of the base, unconscious aspects of the self into a more refined and integrated consciousness. He argued that the decline of religious dogma in the modern world had left a spiritual vacuum, leading to a widespread sense of disorientation and meaninglessness. This disconnection could lead to neurosis on an individual level and to destructive mass movements on a collective level. He saw the political turmoil of the early 20th century, including the rise of fascism, as a terrifying manifestation of an unacknowledged collective shadow. When a society represses its dark side, that darkness inevitably erupts in a destructive and irrational form. Jung's psychology is ultimately a psychology of meaning. He believed that the fundamental human need is to find a sense of purpose and a connection to something larger than oneself. This meaning is not to be found in external doctrines, but through an inward journey to the core of one's own being. The confrontation with the shadow, the integration of the anima or animus, and the alignment of the ego with the self are all steps on this path. It is a path that requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to embrace the full complexity of one's own nature. The shadow, though frightening, contains immense vitality and creative potential. It is the unrefined ore from which the gold of the integrated personality can be extracted. By turning to face the darkness within, we not only heal ourselves, but also contribute to the healing of the collective. We withdraw our projections from the world and take responsibility for our own inner conflicts. This act of psychological and moral courage is the essence of the Jungian project. It is a call to live an examined life, to explore the depths of the psyche, and to realize the unique potential that lies dormant within the self. Carl Jung's legacy is a profound and enduring one, offering a vision of the human psyche as a vast, mysterious and purposeful realm. His work provides a guide for navigating the inner world, a guide to understanding the shadows and the light that constitute our shared humanity. He reminds us that the greatest adventure is not the exploration of the outer world, but the journey into the soul. This inner journey is the path to becoming whole, a process he so aptly named individuation. The first half of life is about building a strong ego and a functional persona to navigate the external world. The second half of life, however, should be dedicated to the inner work of individuation. It is a time for turning inward, for confronting the shadow, and for connecting with the self. This shift in focus is often prompted by a midlife crisis, a period when the values and goals of the first half of life no longer feel meaningful. The psyche calls for a deeper, more authentic way of being. The symbols of the self, such as the mandala, often appear in dreams during this time, pointing the way towards a new center of personality. Jung believed that Western culture, with its emphasis on rationalism and extroversion, had dangerously neglected the inner world. We have become disconnected from our own souls, and this has profound consequences for both individual and collective well-being. The rise of anxiety, depression, and addiction can be seen as symptoms of this spiritual malaise. We seek to fill the inner void with external things, possessions, status, entertainment. But these can never satisfy the soul's longing for meaning. Recovery of a connection to the unconscious is therefore a task of utmost importance. This can be achieved through various means: paying attention to dreams, engaging in creative expression, practicing active imagination, and studying the symbolic language of myth and religion. Active imagination is a technique Jung developed for directly engaging with the figures of the unconscious. It involves entering a meditative state and allowing the archetypal images to emerge and interact with the conscious ego. This creates a living dialogue between the two realms, fostering integration and transformation. It is a way of giving a voice to the silent, inner world. The shadow, when it is not acknowledged, does not simply disappear. It is projected onto other people or groups, who then become the carriers of our own disowned darkness. This is the psychological root of scapegoating, racism, and war. We see in the other the very things we cannot bear to see in ourselves. The world becomes a screen for our inner drama. By withdrawing these projections and owning our own shadow, we take a crucial step towards a more conscious and ethical way of living. We realize that the line between good and evil runs not between nations or groups, but through the center of every human heart. The anima and animus also have their shadow aspects. A man possessed by the negative anima may become moody, irrational, and sentimental. A woman possessed by the negative animus may become opinionated, argumentative, and domineering. Integrating these archetypes involves developing a conscious and respectful relationship with the inner contrasexual figure. For a man, this means cultivating his capacity for feeling, relatedness, and intuition. For a woman, it means developing her powers of reason, discrimination, and objective thought. This integration leads to greater psychological balance and more mature relationships with members of the opposite sex. The self is the ordering principle that contains all these opposites. It is both the center and the circumference of the psyche. The ego is not the master of the house, but a servant of the self. The goal of individuation is to establish a conscious and dynamic relationship between the ego and the self. The ego must learn to listen to the guidance of the self, which often speaks through the quiet language of dreams and intuitions. This is a humbling process that involves surrendering the illusion of conscious control. It is a shift from I want to what is wanted of me. Jung's ideas have had a profound influence on fields outside of psychology, including literature, art, film studies, and religious studies. The concept of the archetype has provided a powerful tool for understanding the recurring patterns and motifs in stories and myths across cultures. Joseph Campbell's famous work on the hero's journey is deeply indebted to Jungian thought. It shows how the archetypal pattern of initiation, struggle, and return is a universal story of psychological transformation. The artist, in Jung's view, is often someone who is particularly attuned to the collective unconscious. Creative process allows the archetypal images to flow into the world, giving form to the universal experiences of humanity. Great art speaks to us because it resonates with the archetypes that lie dormant within our own psyches. It gives us a glimpse into the timeless realm of the collective unconscious. Jung was also a pioneer in the Western study of Eastern religions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. He saw in these traditions a deep and sophisticated understanding of the inner world that was often lacking in the West. He was particularly interested in the concept of the mandala, which he saw as a universal symbol of the self. He encouraged his patients to draw or paint mandalas as a way of centering themselves and integrating the contents of the unconscious. However, he cautioned against simply adopting Eastern practices without understanding their psychological context. The path to wholeness, he believed, must be rooted in one's own cultural and psychological soil. One cannot simply become a Buddhist or a Hindu. One must undertake the uniquely Western task of integrating the shadow of a culture that has for centuries privileged light over darkness. The encounter with the shadow is the apprentice piece in the journey of individuation. The masterpiece is the integration of the anima or animus. This leads to a new level of creativity and relatedness. The final stage is the emergence of the self, the wise old man or woman who has achieved a state of wholeness and wisdom. This is not an endpoint but a new beginning, a life lived in conscious harmony with the depths of the psyche. Jung's psychology is not a set of dogmatic beliefs, but an invitation to a personal journey. It provides a framework and a set of tools, but the work must be done by the individual. It is a call to live a symbolic life, to see the world not just as a collection of literal facts, but as a rich tapestry of meaning. Every object, every event, every relationship can be seen as a symbol pointing to a deeper reality. This symbolic attitude reconnects us to the sacred dimension of experience. It allows us to see the divine, not just in a distant heaven, but in the depths of our own souls. The shadow is not evil, but simply unconscious. It is the part of us that has not yet been brought into the light of consciousness. It contains not only our flaws and weaknesses, but also our hidden strengths and talents. To embrace the shadow is to become more complete, more human. It is to reclaim the lost parts of ourselves. This is a challenging and often painful process, but it is the only way to true self-realization. The world today is in desperate need of this kind of inner work. We are faced with unprecedented collective challenges, environmental crisis, political polarization, and technological disruption. These external problems are, in many ways, a reflection of our inner state. We have projected our collective shadow onto the environment, onto our political opponents, and onto technology itself. The only lasting solution is a change in consciousness. We must, as individuals and as a collective, undertake the difficult journey of withdrawing our projections and integrating our own darkness. This is the profound and timely message of Carl Jung's work. His exploration of the collective unconscious and the shadows of the psyche provides a crucial key to understanding not only our own lives, but also the challenges and possibilities of our time. He showed that the path to a better world begins with the journey into the self. By healing our own inner divisions, we contribute to the healing of the world. The legacy of Jung is a call to courage, a call to consciousness, and a call to become the whole, integrated individuals we were always meant to be. His work remains a beacon for all those who seek to navigate the complex and often treacherous waters of the human soul. The journey is long, but the destination is nothing less than the discovery of our own true self. And in that discovery lies the promise of a more meaningful life and a more conscious world. The psyche is not a machine to be fixed, but a mystery to be experienced. The shadows are not enemies to be vanquished, but guides to be understood. The goal is not perfection, but wholeness. This is the enduring wisdom of Carl Jung, and it is a wisdom we need now more than ever. The journey inward is the ultimate adventure. It is the quest for the Holy Grail, the search for the Philosopher's Stone, the discovery of the treasure hidden in the depths of our own being. It is the great work of a lifetime, and it begins with a single step into the shadows. Let us take that step. For in the darkness, we will find the light, and in the light, we will find ourselves, whole and complete, at last.